So this is going to be as basic as possible. It's an introductory class to Power BI. And at the end of this session, I want to believe that people will be able to, um, let's say, build or even know how to start building reports or dashboards on Power BI. You'll be shown how to, download. You'll be shown how to access the various options that Power BI has to offer. You'll be shown how to um, get data from several sources. You'll be shown how to manipulate data through the Power Query functionality that Power BI has. And you'd also be shown how to add a couple of visuals. So, I mean, with all these experiences from today, you'll be able to pick up Power BI on your own and then practice at home all that you've learned today. So, I mean, Power BI came off from the need for organizations to, you know, get more insights from the kinds of data that they generate. So you see organizations have several sources of data kept in, different places. Someone in finance has data on sales, on income, expenses, and all that kind of thing. Someone in the sales department also has data on sales, right? And probably different from what the person in finance has. That's because they're not speaking to each other, right? So the person in sales is probably more updated because he's the one in the field, and making those sales. So he has that data kept in Excel somewhere. The person in finance probably has the last update as a last month, and you see that there are different pockets of silos of data here and there in the organization. And, you know, it's usually very difficult to piece them all together, to tell a good story about how the organization is faring, maybe on a quarterly basis or on a yearly basis or a monthly basis, weekly basis, as the case may be. So that's what has given rise to the need for business intelligence. So business intelligence is that organization's ability to generate those insights, about how it's faring. The organization is able to tell uh, how they can increase sales in this region because one data has been built up into beautiful reports, for the organization to be able to make those decisions. So business intelligence is really the ability for an organization to, generate insights from the data that it has. And we have tools that organizations can use in this regard. So Power BI, Excel, Tableau, they are basic business intelligence tools that you'd find organizations using today. So you see that Excel has been the initial most popular one where everybody has access to that. You're able to just store your data, on as often as you want. You're able to build pivots. You're able to, develop dashboards on Excel, charts, graphs, and all that kind of things. Yeah, but it has its own lacks, right? Even though it's strong enough as that basic tool, this basic spreadsheet tool, that helps you collate all that kind of data and do some nice and fancy things. It has its lack, and that's where Microsoft, right, has decided to add um, tools like Power BI, right, to support the already existing tools that they had developed. So Power BI is part of the Microsoft softwares. You'd have Microsoft Excel, you'd have Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint. Microsoft Power BI is that uh, business intelligence tool from Microsoft that helps us to, you know, get that advanced level of analytics, advanced level of visualization to support business success. So you'd ask, So what are really the differences? What has Excel um got that Power BI uh doesn't have, or vice versa rather? What has Power BI got that Excel doesn't have, right? So you'd find that Excel Excel is a needy tool, needy in the sense that uh, when you build your report, the person you're building it for, you probably have to save it in a folder, or you probably have to send it via email, and it takes up some bandwidth, right? It takes up space, it takes up kilobyte, right? When you have to transfer those files through emails and all what you have. But you find that with Power BI as a service, Power BI has that cloud functionality that enables users, all kinds of users, both the developer and the end users in the organization, to, just go into the online platform and then play with it, just slice and dice, view it in all forms that the developer has created. So that cloud functionality is one big advantage that Power BI has over Excel. Uh, it also allows more data. So you find that the more the rows on Excel, it becomes too heavy to handle. You find sometimes you just open your Excel, and depending on the kind of system you use, you could spend the whole day there, just trying to wait for the Excel to open. And also depending on the size of the data you have. So maybe 3,000 rows, sorry, 300,000 rows, 400,000, the heavier it is, the more difficult it is to open. But you find that Power BI has that ability to handle these kinds of volume of data with ease, with relative ease. So some of these differences, and in terms of cost too, because it's a Microsoft tool, it's easier for organizations to just key into Power BI as an added tool because it's cheaper than competition. I think the closest competition to Power BI out there is Tableau, and most organizations are already using Excel anyway. They're already using Office 365. So you find that it's just easier to embed a tool that you're already using, the parent tool. So you just add a few licenses to the people you want to give the Power BI licenses to. So in terms of cost, in terms of um, uh, durability, in terms of how easy it is to access, uh, Power BI edges Excel in all this regard. I will share my screen now, so I'll show us how we can, you know, download Power BI on our systems. For people who don't have the desktop version already. So, but before then, let me just quickly say that Power BI, right? It has the desktop version, it has the online version, and it has the mobile app as well. So the desktop version is the one that developers will need to build reports, to build dashboards, right? So all of us here now, I imagine that we want to be Power BI developers or data analysts, right? So you need that desktop version to be able to design, to be able to build, just all the nice and fancy things you already think you can do with Power BI. The desktop version is what you need at this point. So once you've finished building your reports on the desktop version, uh, you are able to now publish it to the online version. So that publishing you do into the online space is what you're able to share to the end users who will now access that online version. So they don't need your desktop version. Your desktop version is like like a handyman. It's like your hammer and your nail. You keep it tidy, right? Nobody really needs that your rough work. You just call it your tool, right? So when you publish it, that's when people can access what you've published online. So those are the three different ways you can access Power BI. You can also use it on your mobile app, like I said. So I believe you can do that with your uh, iPhones, with your Android, whatever versions you use. They should be on the Play stores. So you'll be able to download them, access uh, what you've published online, even access your raw PBIX file. So your Power BI files, when you save them, they're saved as PBIX. So you can also access your raw Power BI files. So I was saying, I'll show us how to um, download the Power BI desktop so that we can dive right in. Okay. So I'm sharing my screen now. If you can see my screen, maybe just a wave of hand or anybody can say yes, they can. Can anybody see my screen? Great, great, great. Thank you. Okay. So you can download Power BI in two different ways, right? You could do that with on Microsoft Store app, and you could do that online. So online, I could just either do a Google search, say Power BI download, right? And I trace it to uh, the link it gives me, or I just do uh, Power BI.microsoft.com, right? So on powerbi.microsoft.com, you'd see their page where you can interact with the pricings, the different products that they have, you know, try their services for free. But if you want to go as far as pricing, you'd need a student account or a work account, right? And I'm sure most of us will not have that handy. So the desktop version is the free tool. You can use that without your student account or your work account. But if you have to access the online part of it where you publish your reports, then you need um, licenses, which will be in form of students or work account. So on that product here, you will see Power BI. So because it's a Microsoft platform, you see the different other products that they have: Power Automate, Power Apps, Power Pages. But for the purpose of this class, we're doing Power BI. And under Power BI, like I said, we have the desktop. The report server is the online one. Because we're on the system, you won't see the mobile app version here. So would go to the desktop, and then you just hit download free, right? So you just click on download free, and I believe it will come. It will, yes, yes. Okay, so I clicked on download free, and it took me into the Microsoft Store. So I'm just bringing that to the screen so that you'd see. So because I already have that downloaded, it's not showing me the download option. It just says open, right? So alternatively, if you don't want to go through the route of, searching Power BI at Microsoft.com, you can just go into the Microsoft Store and just search for Power BI here, right? And you see Power BI. So that's it, Power BI desktop. Okay. And you download it here and install. The beauty of having to do it even but before now, I think about 2-3 years ago, I don't think they had synced both of them together. I think it was possible to download it online and also still download it on the store. But you find that downloading it via this Microsoft Store was I think it was better because the updates were done automatically, right? Whereas if you had downloaded it from the online platform, you'd always require it will always require you to upgrade it, to update it rather. So you find that they always release updates on a monthly basis, sometimes every 2 months, but they always release more recent updates on the desktop version. So everybody has access to Power BI desktop now, right? Uh, just come into the store, search for Power BI, and download. If you have to install it, there are questions? Yes, yes, yes. Great. Okay, cool. Um, so yes, we now have access to the Power BI desktop. So I want to open my Power BI desktop, even though I have it open as one of my files here. But again, just for the purpose of this class, you could just go into your search bar and type Power. You see the Power BI option uh, here, right? Just you see the Power BI option and just go into it. So cool. Sorry, I'm using two screens, so it's a little confusing. All right, so this is the landing page of my Power BI desktop app, right? For new reports that we would like to develop, we'll just go into the blank report. So if I click on blank report, it takes me to the blank canvas. So we call this empty space here a canvas, just like what artists use to paint their pictures, right? It's a canvas because when we are done with this space, it would have, painted something or built something, and then it's going to be consumed by end users, consumed by management, C-suite executives, depending on who you're sending the reports to. But this space here is your canvas, right? Uh, and the first thing you want to do when you open your blank canvas is uh, different people have different ways really, but I think for me, I always want to visualize in my head. I want to visualize what I want to build, right? So maybe there's been a need to build a report that shows the number of sales we've had every month in the last 5 years, right? And we want to be able to also show costs associated with the sales, so all that kind of things that will come from maybe your line manager, your head of department, maybe other departments within your organization, or sales department has sent a request as a data analyst. You want to be able to visualize what they've asked of you. So sometimes I just scribble out a pattern I would want my report to look like in my head, right? Because it's a very small space you want to be able to utilize this small space to ensure that every important detail goes into it, right? If it will take more than one page, we'll go into other pages. And to go into other pages, there's this plus sign down here. You just click this plus sign and we're adding extra pages, right? But I mean, visualizing what you want to build is really important because you find that when you have a picture in your head of what you want to build, the rest of it is just a piece of cake. You already know, okay, this is the kind of visual I want to see. This is the structure I want to follow and all of that. So after visualizing, the next thing you want to do is get data. When I was talking about the differences, what Power BI has to offer that Excel is lacking in. Getting access to data sources is one of those differences as well. So in Power BI, you can access over 100 and maybe 130, 140 different sources of data. Excuse me, right? You could access data from Excel. So I just click on this get data here, and you just see common data sources. These are just the common ones. If I go into more, right, you will then see all the different sources. So under all, you can see how far I can scroll into, right? So it's compatible with JSON files, compatible with Excel, even PDF. Your PDF files, Power BI can get data from your PDF files, from your SharePoint folder where your organization saves files. Power BI can do that. Even from web, right? So I remember back then at the peak of COVID, when people were always going to, I can't remember the website now, but there was this particular website that we're always seeing live updates, of deaths, of, oh, deaths in this country has gone up, spiked up, this, that. So there was, I can't remember the website, right? But it was just easy to go into that website and connect to their data there and, just develop a dashboard that refreshes as that website refreshes. So you are just monitoring the COVID situation live and direct to be sure it hasn't gotten to your doorstep. Because the beauty of Power BI again is you can visualize map, right? So with all the locations, all the cases, number of cases, number of this, number of that, you're able to put it in a map, and you are just monitoring it to be sure those cases haven't hit home, So it was really beautiful to see that you could connect to the web as well, connect to your database. So those of you who work in organizations that have databases, whether SQL or Oracle databases, you could do that with your Power BI as well, just connecting to your database with the port numbers and the server addresses and all that kind of thing. Right. So that's the beauty of Power BI. You can access as many sources as possible. And even within the sources that you can access. So say, for example, you want to access a folder, right? The folders that you have on your file explorer, this kind of folder, right? So maybe instead of accessing just one file, you want to access the entire folder. You want to so you probably want to combine 10 files that are in one folder and combine them as one source. You can do that with Power BI as well, right? So that's the beauty of Power BI, the possibility and the compatibility to connect to as many sources as possible. Um, so for the purpose of this class, we will connect to an Excel workbook, and we'll try to uh, build um, just something very simple, from the Excel workbook that we've connected. So I'm clicking on Excel workbook and I'm clicking on connect. But let me just go over that process again. So that uh, those who aren't following. So to get data, we have get data under home. I click on get data, can click on Excel workbook straight from here and it takes me, but just so that we follow the same process. I clicked on more and then we're seeing all the sources. So we do Excel workbook. I click on connect and it takes me to my file explorer. So this is my file explorer. Uh, I want to connect to my training source, right? And I click on this file and I open. So it pops up a page, right, where you could just preview the file or the source that you've connected to. Uh, that file I've just connected to has two sheets. So it has the employee data sheet. If I click on it, I'm able to preview what it has to be sure, just double checking that this is exactly the file I've selected. And then the training data sheets. I'm sure most of us are familiar with this file. It's probably the same file that was used to during the Excel training. So it was just good to use, similar data set that we've been familiar with. Okay, so because I want to bring in both of them, I'll just I'll tick both. Okay, I'll just tick both of them here. And then down here, you have options. You have load, you have transform, you have cancel. So with the load option, you are just loading the data because you are fine with it, right? You're fine with what is already on Excel. So you just want to load it. Or alternatively, you just want to load it to be sure it loads first, and then you're able to go back later to transform it. Okay. But I think the best practice is once you have your data and you've selected the sheet that you want to use, the next thing to do is to transform the data. So in the ETL process, we have the extraction, we have the transformation, and then we have the loading, right? So you hear IT people or analysts say ETL a lot. Some other people could say ELT, depending on what pattern they follow, right? But extraction is what we are doing now. We're extracting the data from that Excel file that I've just pointed to. Then we now want to transform it. So transforming is you want to check the fields to be sure that the field characterizations are fine. There are no errors. Just transforming it to be sure that it is fit for purpose. So I just click into transform now. It should open another desktop. Yeah. So it just opened up. It just opened up um this view where I'm able to, yeah, right. So on the left side of this view, right, you can see the two sheets that we brought in: employee data, training data, employee data here, training data here. And then in this middle is the data itself, just the way you'd find it on Excel. Uh, I don't think your own versions will have these bars. I think it was something I added just so that I'm able to, see where there are errors. It just points me to. So I'll take out I'll take out those bars just so that it doesn't confuse us first. And I'll show us how to get to those bars where necessary. Right. So this desktop app that it has opened now for the transformation is what Microsoft has called Power Query, right? So your Power Query functionality is accessible on Excel and is accessible on Power BI. With your Power Query, you are able to transform data, you're able to manipulate data by virtue of, accessing data from those different sources. You're able to do all kinds. You're able to merge your data. You're able to append them. You're able to do different things really. But the beauty of this Power Query is that whatever step you take in transforming your data, it records it, right? It records it in this space here called applied steps. So you could see applied steps here. All the steps that you take to transform this data is recorded here so that whenever you have to refresh this data or you have to call this data again, it already remembers all the steps that you had taken, right? So in this case now, we have employee ID, right? But if you look closely, there's a green bar just below the employee ID. Before this first row, there's a green little bar, and then there's a gray one that is longer. Now the goal is usually that the entire thing should be green, right? So if that entire thing is green, it means that column is fine. But when you have more gray than green, or just green getting to some, let me see if any column has something like that. Okay, so So it's all similar where your green is just slightly reaching here, and then you have, so it just means really that you need to do something uh to the data. In this case, I don't know what it is yet, but I'm sure we'll find it. So on your employee ID, right? What type of data is this? Let me see. Is there a question? You are good at this step by action. Okay. So as your for your employee ID, uh, I want to believe from what I see, I don't work in this company, but from what I see, employee IDs are numbers, right? Because if you could see the first three, four, five lines, you could see that they are all pure numbers, right? So if you under home, okay, under home, you will see um transform. There's transform here. Now in this transform space, you see different data types. So for this data type, remember, I'm already clicked on employee ID. Okay. So we want to see what data type we have under employee ID. So it's under home. That's where you'd ordinarily be. Transform. You see data type. What data type is this? It's already whole number, anyways. So I believe it will be fine, but I'm surprised why it's showing a slight green and then more. But let me just quickly check that. So I'll just go back to what I had before, my column distribution and my column quality. So it says have 7% valid, which is the green, like I said, and then empty is 93%, right? So that's where the problem is. We have 93% empty rows and 7% valid rows. So what I can do in this instance is to just right click my column here, right? And remove, where is it now? Okay. I can click into um this filter button here under employee ID. And if I untick null, right? And I do okay, you'll see that our data quality has changed. Valid is now 100, error is 0%, and empty is 0%, right? And then importantly, you'd also see that one applied step has come in, filtered rows, right? So anytime I want to access this data now, I won't need to come here to remove null again because it has recorded that step as an applied step, filtered rows. So it also saves these steps in its own generic um, naming convention. But if you want to edit those steps so that you remember it yourself, you can just go into it, right click it and rename, right? And say removed empty rows, right? So that you remember it next time to say, okay, this is exactly what I did, right? So I removed empty rows, and then you can see that green bar I was talking about is now full. So you now have full green bars. So all the empties and all the errors have been eliminated. And from my column distribution and my column quality, I can see that my valid columns are 100 and my empty and errors are 0, right? So we go into training date column to just check the data type and its date. So training date, we believe it should be date. We go into training program. This should be text. So it's there as text. Training type should also be text. Outcome text, location text, trainer text, uh, training duration, we're seeing numbers, so it should be numbers. Training cost, I'm seeing numbers here. So yeah, decimal number because it's cost, right? So for this data, I can say we're fine in terms of how it should, like the characterization it should have, right? We go into the next one, which is employee data. Again, you'd find that small green and then very long gray bars showing that there's a problem with the columns. With the column distribution, you see that the valid is just 5% and the empty is 95. Again, we could just go through that step, take out the nulls, right? And then okay, it has brought in that step as a new applied step. I go into that applied step, right click it, rename. It's really no, it's not important. It's not important doing this, but I'm just trying to go as granular as possible, so that you know the possibilities that you have with this tool. So I want to edit that to say remove empty rows, right? So that when next I just come into this place, if I read it as removed empty rows, I will remember, oh, okay, it came with empty rows, so I removed it, right? But if I read filtered rows, yeah, I mean, with my experience, I could still be able to remember, but I mean, depends on what you are thinking at that point in time. You may not just remember the particular incident that made you remove those or made you filter those rows. So again, we're fine here, but for exit date, there's a little problem. The bar has, gone halfway. So the green, so it's looking like it's half okay and this half of it is error field or something like that. Again, with the distribution and quality, we can see that 51% is valid and the empty is 49. So you want to ask yourself, why is it that you have empty rows in exit date? Does it make sense? I think it makes sense because it means that the people with empty null values are still within the company. They've not exited. That's why you have null values, right? So I think it's okay that way, right? But if you want to, again, delete the nulls and maybe change that to, it's just that because it's a date column, it will require you to put in a date, right? So let's just leave the nulls for now. But if you click here, you see it as a data type, which is fine. And that's the most important thing. So every other thing looks good. They're all green bars, so we're fine on both fronts. So we've we've extracted our data, right? At this point, we're trying to transform the data. Now we want to load the data because we've certified that our data is fine and good to go. We now want to load data, right? Um, Let me see. Before loading, is there anything here? Yeah. While we're still here, it's just that I'm mindful of the fact that it could be too much to take in just at once. But I mean, if there's still some bandwidth, I'll just talk us through some other things that are possible with this transformation page, which we call Power Query, right? So on your Excel sheet, you're able to do things like VLOOKUP, XLOOKUP, pivot, yeah, all those formulas that you can do. You can do them here as well in Power BI, right? But they're done in different ways. You won't see VLOOKUP or XLOOKUP here or find if and all that kind of thing. You won't see those things here. They have their own ways of doing them, right? Now, if you look under home here, right? You want to you want to you want to join two different sheets. Let's say you work in an organization where the team in the northern region will send you data, right? The same columns. Maybe column A is name, column B is ID, column C is their region, which is north, and column D is the sales amount, right? So those same four columns you have, they always come in. Is there a question there? A key question, please. Where did you click to display the percentage? Okay, I'll do that again. Um, to view your column quality and your column uh distribution, right? You click on view. So in this same Power Query platform, you click on view. Okay, under view, you will see your column distribution and your column quality. So your default setting will be that they are both on tick, right? That should be your default setting. But to view it now, you have to pick your column distribution and then you see these bars, right? Then to see the column quality that shows you how many percent is valid and all of that, you click on column quality, right? And you see it. So even underneath here, you'd see how it has grouped the data you have. So here under start date, it says there are 49 distinct, 49 unique. So it means there are 49 different days. Under last name, you have 49 distinct, 49. So it means there are 49 different, Here you have 26 distinct, 25 unique, right? So there are 26 distinct, but 25 unique, meaning that one of them is repeating. If 25 is unique, one of them is repeating, which is the null. So that's what you're able to do, to tell from the column distribution and column quality. So going back to where we were, yeah. So I was explaining, if you have the northern region send you data in those four columns, name, staff ID, can't remember now. The region in the third column, and in the fourth column you have sales value, right? Then the team in the western region, they send you their own report as well. No, not report, their own data for the month. Name, staff ID, region. Is there another question? What's the difference between distinct and unique? Uh, distinct is distinct. One is one, right? So um let me use this instance now under this exit date, right? Under this exit date, distinct means that null is one. So we have like maybe 20, let's say we have like 40 nulls in this report. Null is one distinct value, right? It's distinct, but it's also unique. How do I explain it now? Null is distinct because it's part of your data set, right? Despite the fact that it is repeating, it is distinct. So if I say, give me the distinct values in this your column, everything will be counted once, right? So everything you have there will be counted once. Those are your distinct values, right? But the unique ones that appear just once are the unique ones, right? So in this case, 03723 is unique because it appears just once. So that's what makes it unique. But null appears more than once, so it's not unique. But when we say give me the distinct items, then null will appear because null is distinct. It's part of it. So just give me one of everything that has appeared there. That's distinct. While you say give me the things that appear only once there, null will not appear. I don't know if I've been able to answer that question. But if you write queries in SQL, you're able to say, give me the distinct count of maybe staff, or distinct count of staff, in the organization, and it's counting everybody that appears once, right? Let me see. Okay, thanks. Let's say I tried with that. Okay, so I was talking about merge queries and appending queries. before the questions came in. So merging queries, uh, you have, let me talk about append first. So in that instance where they've sent you north and they've sent you west in the same format, right? You want to have all of them put together as one set. You want to consolidate it. That's where you need your append queries, right? If you see the sign just before the append queries, you see that there's a sheet on top, there's a sheet below, and then there are arrows, you know, trying to put them together up and down. In SQL terms, that's your union. You are trying to union this table with this other table, right? So bringing them together and consolidating them as one. On the other hand, merge is like your VLOOKUP. So you have a table, just that same table, staff IDs, region, sales amount, and I can't remember the last column. Then you now have another sheet that has staff IDs, staff names, entry date, maybe their designations and all of that. So two different kinds of data, but you have something unique. You have a unique column, right? Which could be your primary key. You have a unique column in both tables. So your staff ID is your unique column in the first table or your data set. Your staff ID is also your unique uh, column in your second data set. So you want to bring in your staff name from your data set 2 into your data set 1. If you were to do that in Excel, it would be your VLOOKUP function or your XLOOKUP function or your index match, right? But in Power BI, you could do that with your merge queries. So if I click on merge queries, you see that it pops up merge queries asking. If I click on merge queries here, then it will show me two different portals, right? The first one is employee data. I want to be able to select training data on the second one, right? And then I want to be able to maybe select staff ID here and then staff ID here. Because on both tables, staff ID is the unique item. And then I'll just click on OK, right? If I click on OK, it will merge the two tables and it will bring the columns that I have from training date all the way to the end here into my employee data, right? And it becomes another table. You get, so those kinds of functionalities are possible with Power BI. You could merge queries, you could append queries, you could instruct it to remove certain rows. Maybe the table comes in with errors in such a way that your data doesn't start maybe from until row 7. So maybe the first 6 rows are usually always empty. You could say remove top rows, right? So under remove rows, we're still under home. Under remove rows, you could say remove top rows. If you always have that kind of data sets where the first 6 rows are probably empty or maybe it has logo and it's not the real data. You just see that the headers of your data will just have, you know, column 1, column 2, column 3. That's what it will be called when you bring them into Power BI. So you could use the remove top rows function, right? If I click on remove top rows and I say I want to remove the top, in that instance now where I said 6 rows are empty. If I say remove the top uh, 6 rows, for example, and I say okay, right? It will do that for my data. I've asked it to remove the top 6 rows. So all those empty rows have now been deleted, and then my data set has now, you know, gone back up to the right format. But remember, like I said, every step I take here is recorded under applied steps, and at any point where I'm uncomfortable with any step I've taken, I can undo. I can undo that step, right? And it will also remember that I've undone it. So this remove top rows that I just did to show us that possibility. I'm taking that out. And we're now back to where we were, 49 distinct values. So with the two data sets ready, like I was saying, we can come here, close, and apply. So we have three different options. We can close and apply, we can apply, we can close. Close means we don't want to apply. Apply means, okay, apply what we've done so far, but I still want to be on this page, right? Close and apply means we're closing the Power Query page that we're on, and we're applying the changes that we've made on the transformation. So close and apply. Right. So it's currently loading. Right. So it came with a success message to say X number of rows have been loaded successfully. Now we have our blank canvas, like I said earlier. Beside the, the canvas on the left, we have the report view, which is where we are. The next view is the table view. If I click on this table view, I'm able to view those same tables we've just finished working on, right? I'm able to view them again, but in a different format. The third view here is the model view. Now in the model view, I'm able to model my data. So data modeling is another important aspect for a data analyst, right? With data modeling, you are able to allow your data sets to each other, okay? So that there is unity with your data sets, right? So like that example I gave where your first data set has staff ID, um, region name, sales value. That's your first data set. The second data set has staff ID, staff name, their designation, employment date, and all that kind of. So that's your employee data. Now you want to be able to marry the two data sets together so that with one selection you can control the two data sets, and you can filter those two data sets with one selection. So that's what modeling helps you do, you know, just marrying one data set to the other data sets to be sure that they are in unity. So for this particular instance, we have employee ID here, and we have employee ID. So it doesn't necessarily mean that when you have multiple data sets, anything that is the same across the tables, you just start marrying. No, not all marriages work like. In fact, you are not. It's not. You shouldn't just look for names that are similar and say, "Oh, it's similar," and then this facilitator said we have to, unify them. No, you have to do that only when there are primary keys. So the primary key concept is such that you are working with single, the single or the minutest form of the data set you have. In this employee data, right? The minutest form is the employee ID, right? Because with that employee ID, every other thing can be generated. If I just say, oh, go into the database, I need the email address, the country, blah, 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 of employee ID 3456. You can just do that, search there, and I can see, oh, the person we're talking about is Vincent. Oh, he works out of Abuja branch. Oh, he joined this company in 2003. You know, that kind of stuff. So that's the minimal or the minimum form, the most granular form, right, of the data set that you have. Now, because that is the column that we have there, and then in the next data set, which is training data from what I see is also talking about employees, right? Those that have gone on training. So we have an employee data here that has employee ID, that designation, department, country, or whatnot. We have a training data that shows it another set of employees, but those who have gone on trainings, right? So we can say, okay, we're marrying employee ID here to employee ID here. Right. So what I just did was I dragged. I'm trying to get rid of this. Okay. Yes. So what I just did was I dragged, right? I'm building a relationship between my employee ID here and the employee ID here, like Aisha rightly mentioned. Aisha, I hope I said that correctly. Right. I'm building relationships between my data sets. That's what this modeling is really about, right? So you can do that in two different ways, really, but this is one of the ways. If I just click here and I click here, you see that they are in sync. So I just drag my employee ID into this one, and it pops up this window that says employee data. I'm on employee ID. So we're building the relationship from table. Employee data here has been selected as the first table. Employee ID has been selected as the column we're building the relationship from. To table, training data has been selected. Employee ID has been selected as the column we're building the relationship to. So it did this on its own by virtue of me dragging employee ID from that left one, the right one. I go over that again, right? By dragging, I'm clicking on this. So when I click, my cursor changes to red. So I'm clicking, right? And I'm holding that click and I'm dragging it into this place. So that's why it has recognized that relationship, right? And then you can see here, it says, make this relationship active. Once you're able to see this green here and you're able to save, it means your relationship is good to go. So I'm saving that, okay? So once it saves, you will see that there is now a relationship between this and this. If I click here, you will see the two columns that have the relationship. Right. Alternatively, you could do the same. Can you drag from, yes, you can do that. You can drag from training to employee data. Right. So alternatively, the same modeling we did here, we could do that here, modeling, and we could do manage relationships. So if I click on manage relationships, this tab appears. So it's already telling me that we have an active relationship, right? We already have an active relationship between employee data and training data, employee ID column, relationship 1:1. If we want to, if we want to build another relationship, we just come into this place and say new relationship. Then that window opens. This time we're going to do it manually. Remember the first time the window opened automatically because we went into model from this part here and we did the dragging and then it detected it and opened this window. But this time we want to do it manually, right? Sometimes I get confused with all the arrows that it draws on this view, on this first view that we had. So that's why most times I prefer to come and do it manually here. I just select my table gradually, select my employee data, right? On that table, I select the other data set. Now from my employee data set, I'm selecting employee ID, which is the column, right? That we want to marry to employee ID here, right? Now it won't allow me do this because there's already a relationship. So it says there's already a relationship between these two columns. So I'm not able to build the same relationship again. So I cancel, but I don't see um any other columns that have the ability to be joined. So I just wanted to show us the other way to do the relationship. For me, I find this easier than actually going into this tab here to do the drag and drop, because by the time you're working with, let's say, 20 different data sets, right? And you're trying to draw the lines here. You're trying to draw the lines by doing the dragging. What will happen is you'll find this kind of tab here repeated in several spots like this, and then you're trying to just, drag this. By the time it draws several lines, you just get confused. Oh, which was joined to what and was not joined to what. So that's why I myself, I prefer doing my modeling under this view, right? It doesn't mean that it's the best way to do it, or it's just what I find more comfortable. Because if I'm able to see it in this view here, to say employee data is joined to training data, ID is active, I know it's active, right? So that's just my own way of building relationships. Now we'll go back to home. So we have our canvas, like I said, and it's ready. It's ready for us to start um, dissecting with our pen. Is there a question somewhere? Can you explain the term their cardinality? Where is it? Okay. So go back here. I want to edit this relationship I have. So we have we have different cardinalities, right? In the sense that the way the data appears in one table versus the way the data appears in another table. Those who are conversant with SQL joins, right, will understand this better. But I'm trying to think of the easiest way to explain it. Now, you're joining from a table where let's say okay, now your employee data, which is this employee data table now, your employee IDs, I believe that they will appear just once because it's your employee data. So it's showing you all the descriptions associated with every employee on every row, right? So in this case, it is one to one, right? Your training, your training data also appears to be one to one because it's showing you the employees that have gone on training. And from the way we looked at it, when we looked at the column distribution, right, you saw that they were unique values. They were all unique values in terms of the employee IDs. There were no repeated values. So it's also one to one. But there are some data sets where you find that what you are trying to join from data set A which is a unique uh, table value, is you're trying to join it to data set B that has repetitive data set value. I give you an example. Example like dates. If you're trying to join on date, so you're trying to build a relationship on date, you could see that your date table will have one to one because every day will not repeat. Today will not repeat. One today appears, tomorrow will appear, next tomorrow. That's how date tables work. But on your sales table, you could see your sales table in such a way that on this date, 7th of June 2004, you could have three, four, 10, 20, 100 different rows that have 7th of June 2024. And that's because every sale is recorded, right? Every sale goes in there. So sale by 7 p.m. goes there, sale by 8, and then you see it under that row, all those dates, which is for today, is repeated there. So in that instance, it is not one to one. It will be one to many, right? So if you see the options here, you see one to many to many, many to one. So with my explanation, the kind of data you're joining, right, is what matters. But Power BI has the intelligence to also detect it on its own, right? That's why I didn't really go there because it usually detects the kind of cardinality that you should join on. Okay. So in this instance, we are doing one to one because employee ID appears once. They are all distinct values in employee data. They are all distinct values in training data. It is one to one. But if we're joining on it and we're joining it with the example I gave where we're joining from a date table that appears once, but we're joining it with sales table where the date appears multiple times, it will be one to many, right? Uh, and if we're doing it in the other way around, it will be many to one. If we're doing it where none of them is unique, right? They all appear multiple times, it will be many to many, right? So that's the cardinality. But like I said, Power BI has the intelligence to detect the kind of cardinality that your data has in most cases, in 99% of the cases, and you are usually good to go. Um, Let me see. Thanks. Is Copilot and adding Copilot? Copilot is like an AI feature for. I think it's for Microsoft. Yes, yes. It's actually it's like an AI feature for Microsoft Edge, which is Microsoft anyway. So yeah, it's like an add-in. I think so. I've not really used it before, but I've been seeing it. If I click it, let me see what it does. It's asking me for email and all that kind of thing. But yeah, yeah. It's an AI feature, yes. So uncover insights in your data. So it requires me to sign. It's an AI feature actually. That I believe you'll be able to interact with, and it could tell you how to do things. Maybe, oh, I want to write that on this, and it will tell me. All right. So we have our data, we're ready to build. But before then, I was just trying to explain the different fields that we have here. So still on the home page, um, we've done the get data part, which we've done here. We've transformed, we've loaded. If you still have recourse to go back to your transformation and say, oh, I forgot to transform this, oh, or maybe I forgot to make this number, it text and stuff like that, you can go here, transform data, right? Click here and click on transform data, and it takes you back to the Power Query page that we were on earlier. Here, you're able to just click uh, new visual and you just select any visual from this side, but we'll get there soon. Um, insert, under insert, you can insert text box, you can insert buttons, you can insert shapes, you can insert images. Text box, if I want to insert, if I want to insert, excuse me, if I want to insert a text box, for example, I click on text box and I can write on it to say Power BI training, right? And that's it. That's my text box. I can move this text box around. I can highlight it. So just the way you'd highlight on PowerPoint, right? I can highlight it, come here, change the color. I want it to look like this, change the font. I want it to have, say, 28. Sorry, the size, and then change the font, maybe Korea New. You can expand it. So I'm clicking on it to expand it. I can make it bold. So I've just boldened it. I can also add italics. However, you just choose to, design your whatever you want to do. But that's how a text box is. So I've just stylishly put in a title to our canvas, right? So this is it, our title. Then on your canvas, you could be so flexible with how you present your dashboard. Remember, the first thing I said before getting your data is visualizing what your report wants to look like. So you could be the type who already have an idea that you want your canvas to maybe have a black background, or you want it to have a red background, depending on who you are doing the report for, or you want to have a picture on it, whatever the case is. But like I said, it's good to, you know, envision what you want to build so that you just know what it is from the get-go. Um, Now, I've shown us what on the left. I've briefly shown us what's on the top. There are still many things that are on the top here that we could see, but I want to just go to the right, because the right is where you would largely interact with when you're developing your reports on Power BI. So the first thing you see on the right is your filter pane, right? On this pane, you're able to bring in fields that you want to use to filter your reports. I'll show us how that works in a bit. The next one you want to see in the middle here is the visualizations pane. In the visualizations pane, you see all the different visuals that Power BI can access, right? So you can see the different charts. These are charts here. You have pie charts. You have the clustered bar charts. If you just hover on it, you see the name of the chart. This is a funnel. We even have maps here. You have cards, you have slicers, you have tables. You can connect to R, you can connect to Python Visual. Now, the interesting bit is beyond what you have here, you can still import visuals from a community. There is a community on Power BI, a community of people like you and I, right? So on that community, you just go in there whenever there's any problems that you have. I trust me, I've gained a lot from the community myself, because you find that working in a company, they need this kind of fancy thing for, because I mean top management um officials, C-suite executives, they already know what they want, right? And sometimes you just they ask for these things and you think, oh, this is impossible. I can't do this. Like we can't see that here. But if you take that problem to the community, for example, to say, I have this problem. Oh, my data looks like this, and this is where I'm trying to get to with my report. How can I get there? Right? If you just go into that community, type type your problem, also try to be as descriptive as possible, but be mindful that you are in a community where you cannot just share, company data. So you have to be creative with how you ask those questions. But as much as you're trying to be creative, also be mindful of confidentiality, right? So just write your problem. Oh, I have my data. It looks like this. It probably has 5 columns. Uh, you can get creative. Column A is this. Column B is this. I want it to do this. You would find that there are people who have had the same problem as you, who have probably dropped that same problem 4 years ago, and someone has dropped a solution. So you just go in there, it will just show you solution. You click on it, and then you see how people have put in ideas to make that problem, or to solve that problem. So, like I said, beyond what you have here, Power BI has the functionality to go into um, other other places, right, to get visual. So if you click on these 3 dots here, you see get more visuals. Now I've just clicked on it. You see get more visuals as an option. You see import a visual from a file, remove a visual, restore default visuals. So if I click on get more visuals, it keeps asking me for email address. I hope I hope I what's my email address now? I hope I have the license to do this. Outlook. Um, so I think to access the community, you have to be doing that with your work or school account, which means that you're a paid member. So that's the difference. Okay, I just wanted to be sure. So I'm unable to access the community because I'm not using my work email address. to do that at the moment. What do we have? You did not use your, yes, I did not use mine. So I'm just using the free version for this class. So, but if you're able to go into that community to get several other visuals. It could be visuals that you need that are not part of the options you have in the default set. So you just go in from, you just click here, get more visuals, and then it takes you to that community. On that community, you see a search bar, and you just search. In that search bar, click into the search. It could be that you're looking for a funnel, so you just type a funnel, right? In the I'm trying to picture it. This is not what it is, but you see a search bar there, type the name of the visual that you're trying to search for, and you see options appear, and then you can download it. Once you download it, it will just appear underneath here as one more visual, right? And that's it. Then under the same visualization, we have two different tabs. The first one is the build visual tab. The second one is the format page. So I've just clicked on the second one, format page. I'm trying to format, I'm trying to change the color of my canvas, right? So like I said, we have this blank canvas. We want to paint it now. So I go to my canvas background. There is the page information, there is the canvas settings. So with the canvas settings, you can change the view. If it's a 16 by 9, a 4 by 3, right? It changes the view. So with each one I click, you can see that it changes. So Letter has changed it to something that looks like an A4, right? It looks like an A4. 16 by 9 is your landscape. I don't know why. So 16 by 9 is the landscape version, right? And we have that. On that canvas background, we're able to change the colors. So we can select whatever color we have in mind from the onset. If I select this, for example, which is like a light version of gray, we call it white. So more like darker white. I select that. You'll notice that it's not appearing on the canvas yet, and that's because the transparency has been set to 100 by default. If I reduce the transparency, you'll notice that canvas color has changed. So I'll take that transparency back up to say 80. I can do that here too. So so 80. My background has changed. Uh, if I want to select another color so that it's more visible, you'd see, I think it's clearer now. I've just changed the color of my canvas. So I don't want to work with a white canvas. I want to work with something that looks closer to red. Uh, Now the canvas is taking shape, right? We have our data here and our second one here. So what would we like to see with this kind of data that we have? We have all kinds of field relating to the employee, the exit dates, his employment type, his department, and all of that. So it means we have different views that we can make from this data. And with such different views, it's very important that you make them what we call slicers, right? So that whoever is consuming the report is able to interact with the report and check the different views. So I want to see exits by division. Okay. So I want to select division. I say Western division. I want to see my report by West. Department type, I want to see my report by finance. Gender code, I want to see my report by male or female and stuff like that, right? So we want to have slicers. Now, for me, I like to I like to bring in my slicers on a shape, right? So I've just gone into insert. I've clicked on shapes. and I've clicked on the rectangle and it brought out this blue rectangle here. So with this blue rectangle, I can massage it and just expand it to look like this, right? So we have our blue rectangle looking like this, but you'd notice that it has gone above what we had before, right? If I bring it down, you see that it's covering our Power BI training. So I'm taking that back up, and then on that format, because it's still clicked, this blue rectangle is still clicked, you see that it's highlighted, right? That's why I'm able to see format. If I don't click on that blue, the format leaves. So if I click this blue rectangle back, format and data drill reappear. So I click on format, I click on send backward, and I click on send to back. Send to back, take my rectangle backward, and it brings my text, which is Power BI training, the text box I did earlier, it brings it forward, right? The same thing you can do really on PowerPoint. These are similar functionalities that you have on PowerPoint. Send to back, send even on Excel, send to back, send to front, right? Just um rearranging your report. I think there's another way to do the same thing I've just done, which is under view, and you click on selection, right? Yes, selection. If you click on selection, you see the two things we've done here, text box and shape. If I take shape over text box, it means I did text box first and then I did shape second. So shape is now covering the text box that we've done. But if I take text box over shape, it means shape was the first thing I did, then text box. So it's the same thing, just the concept of which one did I do first. So which one should appear over what? Just giving layer orders to the things that you put on your report, right? So now we have our header, we have our our shape. Now we're trying to bring in slicers to this shape that we've built. So there's a visual here called slicer. You can see it here. If I click on slicer and I click on country, let's say I want to see countries in this report, right? So we have 5 different values. Let's say 4 countries and blank. Now I want to make this a drop down, right? Rather than showing like this so that they can fit in nicely into the rectangle. So still clicking on this slicer, I'll go into the visualization pane. In the visualization pane, the middle tab there is called the format tab, right? If I click on that middle tab, I'm able to format this slicer. Remember that this slicer is still clicked on. If I don't click on this, I won't be able to. If I don't click on this, if I don't click on the slicer, it means I've clicked out and I'm just on the canvas. So any formatting I'm doing now is for the canvas. But when I click on this slicer and I go into format, I'm formatting the visual that I've clicked on. So always remember to click the visual you're trying to format. Now, I said I want to change this visual from um, appearing as a list to appearing as a drop down. So I click on slicer settings, and then I'll see my options. The options I have are vertical, list, tile, and drop down. If I click on drop down, right, it changes. So if I click this, I'll see my options. I click that back, right? So I can just close this nicely and then plot it here. So it becomes a slicer, okay? So with this slicer, can interact with my report to say, oh, I want to see my reports for things that are happening in Canada or things happening in Nigeria and all whatnot. But there's something showing here which is blank, right? And I mean, it's not something you'd really be happy to see when you are developing your reports. You want to be able to show um, reports that are error proof report that when the executive looks at it, he's not saying at first instance, he's not saying, oh no, this is wrong, you know. So things like that really don't look good on your report. So to take out this blank under the filter, remember I said I was coming back to the filters pane. Under the filters pane, you would notice that I'm still clicked on this slicer, right? So let me click out again so that you see the difference. So I've clicked out of it. I'm now on the canvas. Under filters, there's nothing showing. But when I click on this slicer, you'd see that under filters, the the country is showing because it's selected, right? If I click on this arrow here, can also filter my report based on what we have. What based on the options we have. So this is your report. This is your visual level filter. We have the visual level filter. We have the page level filter. I think there's one more level. I think that there are usually three. This is my luck. Right. So there's the visual level filter. There's this page level filter, and there is the dashboard level filter, which is on all pages. So if whatever I want to change here now, I want it to just affect only this slicer. I can leave it at this visual level for now. So I'm going to select all of them and unselect blank, right? So that you see country is not blank. That's why I'm just saying I want everything, but my country should not be blank. That's what I've just said. So I just close that back. And at every point in time, you can see that country is not blank. So if I come back here to select, I'll just see four options except the blank, which is nice, right? Okay. So we I mean, it's important to say here now that um formatting your visuals, right, is what takes up about, let's say, 60 to 70% of your time in Power BI development, right? Because it doesn't end here. That's not all I want to do to my slicer. I want to do other things. I don't just want to change it to a drop down, right? I want to say, for example, I want to have that color changed. I don't want it to show as white, right? So maybe the background, I want it to show as same color as my as the rectangle I put in. Or maybe not. I don't want the background to show, so I go back. Take it back to white, right? Maybe I want to go into the background itself, right? And change it to blue. So the entire thing to change to blue whilst these values here, the one I changed earlier, I leave it as white, right? So that way only what you have inside, right, will show. It really depends on your taste for designs, right? The first one, the body was white while this inner value was blue. This second one, the body has now changed to the background color. So it laps into this rectangle while the inner value is blue. You could see the difference when everything is built, but it just depends on your taste and your knack, right? For fancy. I mean, at this point now, there's really no right or wrong way of developing your Power BI, but depends on your appetite for looking out for beautiful things or making it more presentable, or trying to you know make your report sync with your company colors, or making it sync with colors that are more globally accepted, so that people who are visually impaired, can see your reports, and it's not blinding to the eyes. Different things to consider really when you're developing it, but it has to be one that is proved up by whoever is using it, and that's the most important thing. If you build something and whoever is consuming it always has problems with maybe your choice of colors or your choice of layout, then it means you always have to go back to the drawing board to develop something again. I think I saw a question there somewhere. This is a direct message to let's round up and contribute next. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. All right. I will I will I'll just try to fill up this rectangle, right? And then we have our slicers ready for maybe development. So I also wanted to add that rather than always doing the same process for similar attributes. So similar attributes will mean I have other slicers here that I want to add to fill up this rectangle, and then I have to go back, click slicer, select the option, change the color and all that. We can copy and paste this, and it saves us a lot of time. So, but before then, I want to format this one to the point that I'm comfortable enough so that I just copy and paste. So the country color there, I don't like it. I want it to show, right? So I go back into my slicer settings. I think that should be the slicer header. So rather than black, I want it to show as white. Fantastic. So I'm good to go now, right? So I just copy what we have here. I'm clicking on the slicer, right click, copy, copy visual, and then I paste again. So I've just pasted this. All I'm doing is pasting Control V. So if you're not seeing it, it's Control V I'm doing, right? So you'd see that you have what now? 5 or 6 countries, but of course we only want one of it, and we'll change the content of the others. So I'm just moving that about now so that there'll be enough space. There's also another way to do that. I can highlight all of them. But to highlight all of them, I just held my control key. I clicked on one, held my control key, and I was clicking on the rest of them. And that's how I've highlighted all of them. I go into my format, I align, and I distribute horizontally. Yeah. So distributing it horizontally will give it equal space, right? So you see, oh, country, 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 country. No, 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 we don't want that. So I want to change this country from country to say division. So I drag my division. So I'm clicking on the second slicer now, right? And I'm dragging. If I click on it, you see that country is ticked. I don't want country to be ticked. So I just drag division into this field here, and I just remove my country. So I have division there. I click on the third one. Country is ticked. I don't want that. I want, say, what do we want? Email. No, email is not a good thing to. Employee type. Employee type is good. So I click employee type. I delete my country, right? And like that, if you have as many different dimensions you want to view your report by, you can fill that up, right? And then you just have your slicers pane up here. And beneath it, you can have your different charts. So nice and quickly, I'll just quickly add one visual. Let's see, visual. I could add a pie chart. And I could say, give me employee IDs, right? Count of employee IDs by gender code. All right. Oh, okay. I think this data has some translation. Maybe 0 is male and 1 is female. I'm not sure which is which yet. So there should have been some measures done at some point to translate them so it's easier to read. But, you know, just for the purpose of this class, I'll just quickly show us how we can add that kind of visual. So I just selected that pie chart. I dragged in the employee ID into the values and it gave us the count automatically. I can change that from count to say maybe average or median, right? Or count distinct. Count distinct is a good one, right? Because it will count if the employee IDs were repeated, it will only count them once if you do count distinct. Right. So you just see a distribution of your employees by their genders. Uh I think we're far spent on the class. And there's so much more we're still yet to do, but I know I've been mindful of the fact that it's an introductory class to Power BI, and we have to be as granular as possible for people who have no idea. I mean, who are just um, getting to see this for the first time. We're trying to be mindful for them so that they can follow the class and they can understand um, what Power BI can do, how we can use it, and how far they can come, when they start working with things like this on their data journey. So I would like to stop here for today.